2. Welcome back, WNST, Towson, Baltimore, and WNST.net. We are licking our collective purple wounds, and as a part of all of that, I have broken out the what I will call the 2006 purple loser choke lights of losing second round bye week, rust versus rest lights. Dennis Koulatsos joins us from Coons Ford Security Boulevard. Dan, Luke says maybe I should get rid of the lights. I've thought about how superstitious David Modell was. He would tell me to trash those damn lights. And when I think about me visiting your box before the game on Saturday night, the delicious chicken and the chicken wings you served me and all the celery I ate and the salad I ate like the rabbit that I am, and enjoy conversation with many of your friends and loved ones, relatives, business associates, your wife. Everybody's up there having a good time. You're pacing the floor, and it kind of reminded me of the Flintstones when Fred Flintstone was pacing the floor when Wilma was giving birth to Pebbles, walking back and forth and creating. It was like you were trying to make a mess of the purple shag carpet there. You had some energy about you. I don't think it was nervous energy. It was just energy for the game to start. I don't know that anyone there, certainly not me, believed that they were capable of losing on Saturday night in some sort of way, right? In some sort of a belief system that when Matt Judon said it's like a car crash, you're never prepared for it, or like when Miles Boykin said after the game, you're never prepared for your season, and no one in this room thought we were going to lose. No one who ever loses thinks they're going to lose. But we lost, man, and it sucks, and it hurts.
Yeah, it hurts a lot. I mean, Vegas didn't think we would lose. We were 10-point favorites. The fan base didn't think we would lose. The team didn't think they would lose. They were well rested. They had earned the bye. All things pointed to a beatdown. I didn't think it was close. I had 34-13 Ravens, and look, the sense of shock that fell over the stadium as it became apparent that the Titans were the better team, at least for that night. We were all consoling each other, Nestor. This to me was the worst home loss in Ravens history, surpassing the 2006 defeat to the Peyton Manning-led Colts. We weren't the number one seed back then.
Well, we also had hope in that game. In that game, there was hope.
We did. Yeah, we did. We lost 5 field goals to 2, right? With the field goal fest. It was like watching paint dry. This was a little bit more exciting because Lamar, ran around and, because we were behind, made some throws he was able to and put up some yardage. But we still held up hope with 6 or 7 minutes to go, and it just never came to fruition. The Titans were the better team. They whooped us on both sides of the line of scrimmage, the trenches. Their offensive line was better. Their defensive line was better. And to me, that's where the game was lost.
All right, well, I mean, you're on the internet more than me, right? I mean, I see some of the stuff you put up with that I just, I don't tolerate. But just from the Lamar, the Harbaugh, the question of this, and Luke and I talked about this because we're still going to South Beach, right? We're still going to be in Miami 2 weeks from today broadcasting, and everyone's going to say what happened. I mean, like they're going to sit at the purple table.
I'll be there too, Nestor. I'm going to be there sitting with my Lamar Jackson jersey on, and Margot will have her Hollywood Brown jersey. We're going ourselves. We'll be there.
You're going to the game?
Going to the game. Absolutely going.
Well, but people on our set, from Radio Row the whole week are going to be saying, what happened? It's going to be an ongoing question of what Marlon Humphrey said with my head behind him, by the way, in the postgame, which is we choked and we're going to be known as losers until such point. And that's what Marvin has to deal with and Andy Dalton until you win, right? Until you win, you're
I don't believe that. I don't believe that for a minute. I think that was just his emotion talking, raw emotions. He's not even 20. I think he's 23 years old. He's a young man, doesn't fully understand consequence. And to me, this is a very young team. I don't look at them as chokers. In fact, I think they're a year ahead of schedule, Nestor. I mean, none of us thought they'd go on a 14-2 run this year. I had them between 8-8 and 11-5. Thought maybe they could scratch and claw their way to the playoffs. This will be a foundational year, where Lamar Jackson will continue to improve, a competitive year, but certainly not a year where they would go on a 12-game winning streak, get the number one seed in the playoffs. I still think that the window for this team is opening. It's not closing by any means.
Dennis Koulatsos joining us here. He will be here on Thursday, each and every Thursday from 3 until 5 with the Dennis Koulatsos Show in the aftermath. I hear that point, right? But I also hear that a player will now walk the earth. He will go home and hang out in Alabama, hang out wherever he is. Hopefully he's got a cell phone charger. And, the Pro Bowl, a lot of these guys are going to the Pro Bowl this week, right? There's going to be what happened that year in the same way. We haven't talked about the 2006 Ravens in a long time around here, have we, Dan, right? Because, they were not memorable. They were not champions. They did not get the deal done. That was Brian's last ride, literally, right? That they didn't get the deal done. And that does haunt you if you don't win. Just like Billy Cundiff and Lee Evans would have haunted the Ravens. Or if Flacco to Jacoby Jones and the Mile High Miracle didn't happen, everyone's legacy's different, right? Frank Gore runs the football. Jim Harbaugh's feeling better at the holidays than John, right? So these things do turn on a play or two or a game or two. As you assess Saturday night, Dennis, what happened?
Hey, Nestor, again, it took Peyton Manning 6 years to win the playoff game. So to me, this story is just starting to be written about these Ravens. It's again, as we mentioned, it's a very young team. They came out, I think the Titans had a very good game plan. They crowded the line of scrimmage, much like the Chargers did in a playoff loss last year, and the team just wasn't capable and able to step up. And you saw me on social media. I was defending Lamar Jackson. I was defending, Coach Harbaugh. These people didn't go out and look at the All-22 film like I did every single play. They didn't realize that Nick Boyle was only in there for 26 plays. He was injured, and once they fell behind, they couldn't really run the ball. Not they had any great success initially. And look, Gus Edwards gets 3 carries for 20 yards, and people are saying, well, they should have given them the ball more. That's all well and good, but it was too late at that time. They'd fallen way behind, and now you're going to criticize the 4th and 1 calls that have been working for the most part the entire year.
I can't criticize the 4th and 1 calls, but they have to work. And when they don't work, you lose.
Sure.
You lose.
Sure, you do.
And when you fumble the ball, you lose. And when you can't tackle, tackle the other team's running back, you lose. And when you do any of those things poorly, you are susceptible to losing, right? But when you do all of them simultaneously, you do what Kansas City did, which is you fall behind 24-0, and then you have to dig out, right? And that's when I was tweeting, and I know you and I, we were together before the game, and then we were apart during the game. My wife didn't go to the game, so everything about the game was weird, right? Like, I visited you for an hour before the game. I've never done that. I sat in the press box the whole game. I did that once when she was in the hospital 4 or 5 years ago, but I don't sit in the press box I sit in my seats. But because my wife was unavailable, had an ear infection, and on the shelf, the whole deal, everything about the night was a little off kilter for me. And I said all along, if they fumble, that's going to be the night they lose. If the handoffs aren't good, if the ball pops off of a tight end's shoulder pad and up in the air for a safety to pick it off, that's going to be bad. If they get punts blocked or kicks are missed, things happen, right? We can go back to all of the how about the Pittsburgh game where Bolden dropped the ball and we had a special teams guy jumping off and the Palomalu pick, and we remember these games. Ed Reed playing pitch and catch after a interception in Indianapolis when Joe Flacco has a hip that's purple, and you learn all these things later on about the extent of Nick Boyle's injury and where Mark Andrews' high ankle sprain was and all of that stuff. But when everything conspires to go wrong, a champion has to dust off and come back. And they just weren't able to do that in the third and fourth. They still weren't able to tackle Derrick Henry late in the game when they needed to.
Well, I think that underscores the need for this team to get help in the trenches, defensive line, front seven, on the defensive side of the ball. And on offense, they need a big-time receiver or two. They need a veteran. Maybe it's A.J. Green. Maybe it's Amari Cooper. That's for Eric DeCosta to figure out. Plus a rookie. When these teams crowd the line of scrimmage, Lamar's got to be able to go over the top. He's got to have confidence. Miles Boykin was open downfield a couple of times. Lamar just didn't see him. And I think as Lamar continues to grow, he will eventually find these guys downfield. But I think this gave some clarity to the team, to the front office, in terms of what they have to do in the offseason to get this team over the hump, Nestor. And again, I had targeted 2020 as that year. It really wasn't 2019 for me, and I'm not making excuses. It's genuine. But I think another strong draft class, some cap space. I thought 2020 would be the year where this team would make a serious run in the playoffs. And guess what? We were fooled a little bit. Maybe it's premature, but I don't think it's fool's gold. You can't take away the 14 wins. They beat some division leading teams in the Niners, right? I mean, they beat up some teams, the Houston Texans, and now look, it hurts a lot, but I'm not ready to throw out the baby with the bathwater. I'm not ready to give up on Coach Harbaugh. I'm not ready to give up on Lamar Jackson.
Yeah, all of that stuff's nonsense, right? Like in the aftermath of all of that, to say it's a one night issue for me. And did they stink? Yes. And look, John Harbaugh in the aftermath of the Billy Cundiff Lee Evans game stopped by and visited with us in Indianapolis, and you could see the pain in his eyes. I remember saying to him, do you ever get over it? He said, I'll never get over it. I'll never get over it. And, 8 months later, he won a Super Bowl, beat his brother, in a fairy tale thing that I wrote a 500-page book about, right? So you say you're never going to get over it, but the choking and the loser part that sticks with you until you do win, I disagree with you, Dennis. I'm not saying choke's not a thing I use, right? But not showing up at big times in big games, that's not choking. It's just not winning in January. Winners, champions win when it matters, right? The other side of this would be, my wife spent 10 hours in the emergency room Sunday, so the aftermath of the loss and everything in Miami and all this stuff. Now I'm sitting in a hospital room again with my wife, which is always painful. And I'm watching his football game, and I see Kansas City get down, and in a blink, they score 7 times in a row. It's really incredible that it is possible to pick yourself up. And in the aftermath of Billy Cundiff and Lee Evans, this organization dusted itself off. And Joe Flacco came back and said, I'm going to do it again. I'm going to throw another one. And this time it's going to work. And next time we're going to come with Ray Lewis a year older, and we're going to beat you up. And they did. And they went to New England. But it took them 52 weeks, right? And you remember those 52 weeks, Dennis. I remember the 8-hour bus ride back from Foxborough with 6 busloads of people that came Lee Evans and a Cundiff wide kick away from going to Indianapolis. I remember the pain of that. I channeled that to make my New Orleans trip bigger and better, in the same way that I'm going to make Tampa in the 20th anniversary next year bigger and better. But in the meantime, you got 52 weeks where Marlon Humphrey, Lamar Jackson, all these guys got to go and see their homeboys and go home to their family and wherever they go, whatever Pro Bowl they're in and whatever money they're making. That's all nice. But the last memory is we didn't get it done. And that you find out whether you're a champion or not right now. And based on what we saw Lamar do after San Diego last year, or whatever they're called this week, London, L.A., Carson, beating up on him last year, he worked every minute to get better. There's no reason to believe that he won't. Now, all that being said, good fortune in 14-2. There's a lot of good fortune that was involved in 14-2 this year, that you don't just bottle that and say we're going to come back and go 15-1 next year.
No, I would agree with you. But again, you win or you learn. And what we learned, I think, is the Chiefs, they're a pass-first team. So when they get down, they're capable of coming back and scoring, 3 touchdowns in 15 minutes. The Ravens, being a run-first team, they just don't have that capability. They need weapons. They need to change some things, add some pieces here and there. So they'll go back, like you said, they'll analyze, they'll tear this thing back down again and figure out how they can get to that next level, how they can build this team to where if they do get down by 16 points or 14 points, that they do have a shot to get back right in it again in a very fast fashion like the Chiefs and get on top. Because this type of offense that they have, once they have the lead, they're great. But if they have to play from behind, and that's the way to beat the Ravens. We saw the Bills use that formula and almost beat them. And we saw the Chargers a year ago use the same formula to beat them. Same thing with the Browns. Once you get on top of these Ravens, they have a very hard time coming back. So Eric DeCosta, Ozzie Newsome, the Brain Trust, John Harbaugh, Greg Roman, they'll figure it out. And again, you got to still add some pieces on that defensive end of the field. The Patriots couldn't stop Derrick Henry, neither could the Ravens. And to me, that was also a big key. The guy lumbered for almost 200 yards, ran us over, had some big runs, and if you can't stop him, you're in big trouble, much like Jamal Lewis and the Ravens back in 2000. We saw the same thing. That offense centered around Jamal Lewis, and if we don't have Jamal Lewis, we don't win that Super Bowl back in 2000.
That is Koulatsos is here. We are discussing what went wrong on Saturday night, and certainly, I enjoyed your company before the game. It just everything got a little off kilter early on, and the notion of not stopping Derrick Henry, that, like we say, we didn't see this coming, and Matthew Judon said it's like a car crash. You never see it coming. Mm-hmm. The Derrick Henry thing, we should have seen that coming, that like he needed to be tackled, and if he wasn't going to be tackled, that was going to present the possibility of an upset. That would be the key factor in all of this. I mean, can you overcome the fumbles and all that? Sure. If you play defense and you tackle him after you do it. Fumble the ball, get picked off, have the ball bounce off a shoulder pad, whatever, bad luck. But then the other team comes out on the field and you have to hold that to 3 or hold it to a punt or, hold it to a red zone appearance. But they were unable to do that.
No doubt about it. I mean, look, Dean Pease got the best of Greg Roman, right? So there's a lot of storylines in this game, and none of them any good. They're all bad. They're all painful. But if you don't stop the run in the NFL, it's going to be a long, long day for you. And by the virtue of the Ravens failing to do so, they put themselves in a hole. They left themselves open to play action. They got stung after that 4th and 1 stop that they went over the top for that 45-yard touchdown to put themselves in a deeper hole. And as you said, it was an odd game. It didn't feel good. It felt bad, just like last year's loss to the Chargers, and even worse because of the expectations, because of the 10-point favorite, because of the home field advantage throughout the entire playoffs. And so, look, the Ravens missed a golden opportunity. Would have loved to have been at the stadium again facing the Chiefs, but it's not the way it is. And as you mentioned, got to live with this loss for 52 weeks, and it's going to be a long off season. But look, we got free agency, we got the draft, but before that, we do have another the AFC Championship game and the Super Bowl to look forward to. Unfortunately, our Ravens are playing in it, but being fans, we're going to be there anyway.
What should I do with the purple rope lights, Dan? Are you superstitious or are you not?
I'm not superstitious. Look, I'm going to wear my purple at the Super Bowl. Look, when I hang my head high, we have a wonderful organization. You're not going to win it every year. We're not going to open on the door of a 3rd Super Bowl. Our team is going to get better. They're young. We love our front office, right? So
cap space. We got cap space. I like that.
Yeah. Back in 2011, we were despondent. We were upset. We were devastated. And a few months later, we were celebrating. We had the confetti falling on us in New Orleans. So why not again a repeat of that in 2020? That's what inspires me. That's what keeps me going. That's what I'm looking forward to. I was upset for a minute, but you know what? Life goes on.
Oh, upset for a minute. I'm glad I didn't have you on there when you were upset then for that minute.
No, I was, we were all very upset. Look, we were down. I spent the entire day on Twitter, fighting with people, but trying to just calm everybody down. It's like, come on, guys, we can't throw out the baby with the bathwater, right? We have a lot of good. It's one game, and as you mentioned, you need luck to get to 14-2. You need luck to win the game. You need luck to win the Super Bowl. There is an element of that, right? So the best team doesn't always win. The hottest team wins. Right now, look, the Titans are very hot. Chiefs are very good. It's going to be a very good championship game, just like the Niners and the Packers. We're looking forward to both of those games. Unfortunately, we're not in them, but look, it is what it is.
Dan, it's good enough that I'm 51 now that I can handle these life lessons better than when the snake went ghost to the post and my dad had to explain it to me as a 9-year-old on Christmas Eve that the Ravens weren't going to be playing next week, or the Colts, I should say. And, same thing when the Steelers would come in and beat us. Bradshaw would beat us or whatnot. The modern era, it feels so good when you win, and the New Orleans party and the Tampa party. And I've said this to Luke, and I'll say it to everybody 2 weeks from now when we're down at South Beach. If it's meant to be that the 20th anniversary of Trent Dilfer and Brian Billick and Ray Lewis and Art Modell wearing the Kukua nuts in Tampa, that if we're in the same locker room we celebrated in 20 years ago, Raymond James Stadium, right? If that's the way it goes down, then, I'm okay with that. In the same way that it didn't go down in Indianapolis, it went down in New Orleans, but it happened. And that's when we dust ourselves off. And I talked a lot about dusting myself off this weekend. Dusting myself off is, I thought I was going to throw a big party down in Miami. I'm just going to move that over to Tampa, and we're just going to do it next year instead. How about that?
That sounds good. Nestor, and you were in that locker room. I'm sure that mood was really, really bad in that locker room post-game, right? I'm sure guys were devastated about the outcome and shocked, probably walking around in a daze. Didn't expect that.
Well, I mean, a lot of guys talked about it was like a movie, I can't believe it's over. I definitely had that feeling. I mean, as I walked home on a 70-degree night and tail lights everywhere around the city and some people that probably drank a little bit more than they should have in various places, it was like I was going to wake up from a bad – it still feels that way a little bit. I mean, it all came clear when I'm watching Kansas City and Houston and they kept putting up Tennessee. Okay, but I'll say this, and I mean this from the heart, and this isn't just because my wife was sick on Sunday and I spent it over at Hopkins in the emergency room because we had a television, I had the internet, I haven't watched any of it. You know what I mean? I would not want to break down play-by-play of what happened when Hayden Hurst didn't look for the ball or when, Chris Moore dropped the ball, whomever, right? Or whomever dropped balls. Everybody dropped one, right? Or who Derrick Henry ran over, although I know Matt Judon was involved at various points and other guys were as well, and stiff-arming Earl Thomas. I remember that stuff, but I haven't watched it again. I have not watched one iota of it again. I came home and, you know this, Dan. This is the musical part of the programming here. One of my real heroes and real legends died on Friday when I was in the parking lot at Dave & Buster's in Fort Lauderdale. By the way, that is the truth is I had a parking lot that would have sustained 5,000 to 7,000 people. On I-95 with purple floodlights ready to go. You know what I mean? We had the biggest big screen TV. We were gonna wreck it up on 95 to watch the game in a parking lot. Literally where you could see the glow of the stadium from 5 miles in the distance. So I had it all ready, and then Neil Peart dies on me at 5 o'clock. And, I'm listening to some music there and whatnot, and, I get a little musical thing going on over the weekend. And listen. So after we lose, I came home. My wife was too sick to even move in the middle of the night. And I remembered the purple floodlights that I have around my neck right now, the purple rope lights, and blubbering after losing the Peyton Manning. And Dennis, I decided when I came home that I wasn't going to blubber this time. And I fired up Exit Stage Left on the DVD from the Forum in Montreal on the Moving Pictures Tour. And I cranked it up loud enough to bother my neighbors, but not my wife. And I just decided to do 90 minutes with Neil Peart and Geddy Lee and Alex Lifeson, and that's what I did. Not a lot of drinking, nothing like that. Just I had a beer. I had a Guinness milk stout, brewed right here in Baltimore. It says so right on the can. And I watched a little Rush, and that's what I did. So, but I haven't watched any of it, and I'm sure at some point this week I'll be looking up somewhere and I'll see a highlight or whatnot. But I've left it alone, Dennis. I've put it away for now.
Well, naturally, there's more bad than good on that tape, and I was certainly disappointed by some of the effort and the lack of execution of some of our players, particularly as the game wore on. And I know that Derrick Henry's a big man, but to beat a man, you got to beat the man. We said that ad nauseum the last few weeks, and I was disappointed. But it will help the coaching staff and the front office identify what they need to do to go forward. Right? There's always positive you can pull out of everything, but not much from this game. Huge disappointment for the city, for the organization. But the nice thing is that the team is young and should get better. Not saying they're going to go 14-2 next season, but look,
if there's anything about Lamar, right, that we learned last year, Lamar, no one can be more crushed than Lamar. How about this, Den? I haven't shared this story with you, but I shared it with Luke once earlier. So about 10 minutes before Neil Peart died, I'm in this Dave & Buster's. And by the way, they were wonderful. I want to give them a real shout out down there. If you're in Fort Lauderdale, go spend some money with them. They were wonderful people. And they were all set up to like make this thing really special. Because in 2006, I flew down there, Den, to throw a party when we were 13-3, and it never happened, right? So I went back this time to the place that I had 13 years ago and said, I want to dream it bigger and better, and this is what I did in New Orleans right, and this is what we did wrong, and this is how we should have done it. You know what I mean? So I'm in the Dave & Buster's for the second time in 2 days. I began there Thursday, went back on Friday. Really nice, conversation about all facets of handling people and whatnot. And a young lady at the front desk says to me, hey, mister, you're the guy from Baltimore, right? I'm like, what could possibly give you – would it be the shirt that I'm wearing that has Lamar Jackson on the front, or my Baltimore positive hat, or the purple pants I'm wearing? What would let you believe that I'm the guy from Baltimore? So I went up to her, and she said, hey, you know Hollywood Brown's sister worked here for a long time. And I'm thinking to myself, this location is in Hollywood, Florida, by the way. That's its official address. Hollywood. So Hollywood Brown's sister worked it, and I thought, this is just meant to be, right? Like this is meant to be in the same way that Hollywood and Lamar thought going home to Miami, this is going to eat at Lamar forever, that he didn't get to win a Super Bowl in Miami, right? Like, this is going to eat at him forever because next year's Tampa, and then there's L.A., and there's going to be Houston and Dallas and Vegas and Arizona. They're going to play Super Bowl. They might be 10 years getting back to Miami. It might be 12, 15 years getting back to Miami, right? So yeah, this is going to bother Lamar even more than it bothers you and me, for sure.
Well, that was Marlon Humphrey's point. He said that the fans think that they care more than the players do, but he says, trust me, you don't. And I know they care a lot, and I get it. They give their heart and soul. And, Lamar Jackson, he always has a chip on his shoulder. That'll never go away. I'm confident of that. He will always play, no matter how many accolades, how many awards, how many rings he eventually achieves. He will always be fired up. But now,
you think he's watching the game this week, right? Like, I mean, literally, like how disappointed that this young man must be, right? I mean,
but
at how he played, right?
Yeah, but somebody said, he's got to figure out how to win the playoffs. Well, you know what? It's not wrestling, right? It's not one-on-one. It takes 53 men plus the coaching staff. I don't see it as a knock on him. I don't see that he hasn't figured out how to win the playoffs. I think the team's got to get better overall. His support cast has to get better. He has to continue to get better, but I don't know how people can say he can't win in the playoffs. They figure him out. And I think the team needs to figure out how to put him in a better position where he doesn't have to play from behind it. And if he does, how can they overcome that, right? So is it better linemen? Is it better receivers? A better scheme? Probably all of the above.
Marshall Yanda coming back, Dennis. What do you think?
You know what? I hope this isn't his last game. I saw him where he said the guy spit in his face, and I hope that's not how a Hall of Famer goes out, right? So that really bothered me that Jeffrey, I think his name was Jeffrey Moore, did that to him. I know that the offensive line got physically beat up. I'd like to see Marshall go out on top, and unfortunately he's not going to get a chance to do that this year. I sure hope that he goes back home and recovers and gives us at least one more year. But at this point, I would think it's a coin toss. You were in the locker room. I'm sure he didn't want to talk about it.
Yeah, I wasn't at his. I was at another locker when he was giving a speech, and I've listened. You can hear it on the radio too. But I walked through there, and the one thing I always know is it will be different. Faces will change. I was there when Matt Judon, got choked up. Literally got choked up talking about. It might be. I was the one to ask him a question. You think, have you thought about it? And so for a lot of these guys, there's that, and then there's just the off season of transition and moving around. Dennis Koulatsos will be transitioning to the Dennis Koulatsos Show on Thursday, 3 to 5. Make sure you're checking that out. Of course, you can still hear it on Sunday mornings. We'll call it the Sunday Sports Voice for that. What's going on at Coons 4? Tell me what's happening out there. They could drown their sorrows and, maybe get some heated seats or heated steering wheel. I'm sure it's going to get cold at some point, right? Maybe sometime.
Well, even if it doesn't, they all have air conditioning these days. All vehicles do, and it's not going to be as festive. But look, business as usual here. We're still doing great things. Lots of people coming through our doors, courtesy of WNST. We do a ton of repeat and referral business, Nestor, and this is a great time of the year to coming up rate your ride and get your vehicle serviced too. Make sure you have good tires on it, just in case we get some of that snow and ice out there that we're prone to here in Baltimore.
Whatever you do, don't call Lamar Jackson a choke over with Dennis Koulatsos at Coons Ford, right?
Not at all. He's not a choker. Look, they just got beat, and it happens. That's life. Now, we'll see how they bounce back, and my feeling is they'll bounce back stronger as ever.
I hope so. And I remember Billy Cundiff, and 52 weeks later, what happened. If this team is a champion, if it has the heart of a champion, if it truly does, that's what will happen, right? Like literally, right? So they'll get the chance to prove it again next year the way the 2013 Ravens did. Find Dennis Koulatsos out on Twitter and, of course, here. He's always around Monday and Tuesday on my show as well as on Thursday doing his own thing from 3 until 5. Make sure you're tuning that in and up. Nasty at WNST.net finds me 24 hours a day. Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn, Snapchat, Instagram, anywhere you are. We are WNST.net, AM 1570 and WNST Towson, Baltimore. And we never stop talking Baltimore sports.